What if some of history's greatest names never walked the earth? From mighty rulers and saints to legendary warriors and philosophers, today we unravel 21 icons whose existence may be nothing more than myth, and ask, does their impact depend on whether they were real? Throughout human history, the line between myth and fact has never been fixed. In the absence of written records in cultures shaped by oral tradition, and in times when political motives colored every parchment, stories took on lives of their own. Heroes were born in the telling, some exaggerated, others entirely invented. Many of history's most iconic figures are celebrated not because of solid archaeological evidence or contemporary accounts, but because their names have endured, repeated through poetry, scripture, epic tales, and nationalist folklore. Yet, when historians go searching for physical traces, primary documents, or verifiable eyewitnesses, the trail often vanishes. What remains is a silhouette, an idea, rather than a confirmed biography. The reasons for this are deeply rooted in how societies remember. Before printing presses and modern archives, the survival of a name relied on the memory of others. And memory is malleable. It shapes reality to serve identity, belief, or power. Monarchs seeking legitimacy reached into the past to claim mythical ancestors. Religious leaders sanctified stories to inspire faith, and oppressed communities crafted figures of resistance, often larger than life, to represent collective hope. Sometimes, legends evolve from a kernel of truth, a real warrior, a wise sage, a reformer. Over generations, embellishments accumulate, achievements multiply, miracles are added. In other cases, characters emerge seemingly from nowhere, constructed out of necessity, entirely fictional, yet treated as historical by those who came later. Modern scholars refer to this phenomenon with a careful term, historicity. It does not simply ask whether a person existed, but how we know, what sources we rely on, and whether the narrative aligns with the evidence. Figures of disputed historicity challenge us to confront the difference between cultural memory and historical fact. In this documentary, we explore 21 such individuals, kings, prophets, saints, and warriors, whose very existence has been questioned. Their names echo through history, but their footprints remain elusive. Each one forces us to ask, did they walk the earth, or did we create them to make sense of it? In the early medieval chronicles of Britain, a single name rises above the rest. Number 1. King Arthur. Said to have led the defense against Saxon invaders in the 5th or 6th century, Arthur's legend is rich with knights, round tables, and enchanted swords. But strip away the romance and the historical ground beneath him begins to shift. No contemporary Roman or early Saxon record mentions Arthur. The first real written reference appears in Historia Brittonum, compiled around 828 AD, 3 centuries after Arthur supposedly lived. Later, Geoffrey of Monmouth's Historia Regum Britannia, written in the 12th century, transformed Arthur into a full-fledged imperial king. But Geoffrey's work blends myth, folklore, and nationalist storytelling. Not verified history archaeologists have yet to uncover direct evidence of Arthur, Camelot, or even his famed sword, Excalibur. To many scholars, Arthur is likely a composite, a symbol of resistance woven from the deeds of multiple warlords during the chaos of post-Roman Britain number 2. In ancient Sparta, another figure emerges from shadow, Lycurgus, the lawgiver. Credited with shaping the militaristic, disciplined Spartan state, Lycurgus is said to have introduced a radical constitution, equal land distribution, state-run education, and communal meals. Classical sources such as Plutarch describe him in reverent tones, but even Plutarch, writing in the 1st century AD, admits that Lycurgus's timeline and deeds were hotly debated even then. No two ancient sources agree on when Lycurgus lived, if he lived at all. Historians suspect the name may have been used as a vessel, a symbolic father of Spartan law, crafted to legitimize the city's rigid order. Number 3. In medieval Europe, another name flickered like a mirage on the maps, Prester John. Described as a Christian king ruling a vast Eastern empire, he first appeared in European letters during the 12th century. He was said to preside over a land of wealth, miracles, and devout faith, a potential ally in the Crusades against Islam. Letters attributed to him circulated widely, filled with fantastical claims, rivers of gems, kingdoms of giants, and lands beyond the reach of the known world. Yet no such kingdom was ever found. Scholars today view Prester John as a European fantasy, born of desperation, longing, and ignorance about Asia and Africa. His legend endured for centuries, shaping exploration and diplomacy, but never once was it rooted in geographic or political fact. These legendary kings and founders, Arthur, Lycurgus, Prester John, share a common thread. They emerged during moments of uncertainty to offer clarity, unity, and identity. Whether defending the homeland, reshaping law, or promising salvation from afar, they became vessels for cultural hope. Their stories live on, not because they ruled, but because people needed them to. Across cultures, stories of lone warriors and fearless rebels have shaped national identities. Yet, behind the heroics, many of these figures blur the line between reality and myth. Number 4. Ragnar Lothbrok, the legendary Viking warrior. According to Norse sagas, Ragnar was a scourge of Europe, raiding Paris, slaying dragons, and fathering sons who became kings. But historians have long questioned whether Ragnar was a single person. The earliest mentions come from 13th century Icelandic texts like the Saga of Ragnar Lothbrok, composed centuries after his supposed death. While there were certainly Viking leaders like Regin Hyrus, who besieged Paris in 845, and others named Lodbrok, the details conflict wildly. Modern scholars increasingly see Ragnar as a mythologized composite, an archetype built from various real Viking leaders whose deeds were merged to craft a larger-than-life figure. Number 5. In medieval England, a similar debate surrounds Robin Hood. Said to have lived during the 12th or 13th century, Robin is portrayed as an outlaw who robbed the rich to feed the poor, defied corrupt sheriffs, and protected the common folk. The earliest ballads date to the 14th century, though earlier references to a Robin Hood appear in legal records as generic terms for criminals. Despite centuries of literary adaptation, from ballads to Shakespeare to modern films, no verifiable historical Robin Hood has been found. Instead, he represents the frustrations of the peasantry, an idealized figure of justice in a deeply unequal society. Some historians suggest that Robin may have been based loosely on multiple real outlaws, stitched together by storytellers to express popular resistance. Number 6. In the Swiss Alps, William Tell stands as a national symbol of freedom. The tale is simple but powerful. In the early 14th century, Tell refused to bow to a tyrannical Austrian official. As punishment, he was forced to shoot an apple off his son's head with a crossbow, and succeeded. He later killed the tyrant and sparked a rebellion. The story became central to Swiss independence mythology, but the earliest written account appears in the White Book of Sarnen, compiled around 1470. More than a century after the event supposedly took place, critics point to the similarity between Tell's story and older European folktales involving expert marksmen. No contemporary records confirm Tell's existence, and even some Swiss historians now view him as a symbolic creation, molded to inspire patriotism. What unites these figures, Ragnar, Robin, and Tell, is not verifiable biography but cultural resonance. They reflect the values their societies cherished: defiance against tyranny, loyalty to kin, and the courage to act. Even if they never drew a real sword or loosed an actual arrow, their stories shaped how nations saw themselves. In many cultures, the foundations of wisdom and morality are credited to singular, transcendent figures. But for several of these sages, the historical trail is either faint or missing entirely. Number 7. Laozi, the founder of Taoism, is traditionally believed to have lived in the 6th century BCE. According to legend, he served as a record keeper in the Zhou dynasty court before retreating from civilization. As he departed China's western frontier, he is said to have written the Tao Te Ching, a foundational text of Taoist philosophy, and vanished into the mountains. But there are no contemporary records of such a man. The earliest biographies of Laozi come from the Shiji, compiled by Sima Qian in the 1st century BCE, centuries after Laozi supposedly lived. Scholars today debate whether Laozi was a real person, a pseudonym for multiple authors, or a symbolic representation of Taoist thought that evolved over generations. Number 8. Homer, the poet to whom ancient Greece attributes the Iliad and the Odyssey. These epic poems, composed around the 8th century BCE, define the heroic age of Greek mythology. Yet the man called Homer remains elusive. Ancient sources offer conflicting accounts of his birthplace and life, with some claiming he was blind, others suggesting he never existed. Linguistic and literary analysis suggests that the Iliad and Odyssey were shaped over time by oral tradition, possibly refined by multiple poets across decades or even centuries. The idea of a single Homer may be a convenient attribution, a way to anchor oral history in a named author. Number 9. Zoroaster, also known as Zarathustra, the prophet of ancient Persia and founder of Zoroastrianism. His teachings laid the groundwork for one of the world's earliest monotheistic religions, influencing later Abrahamic traditions. Yet, historians disagree widely on when, or if, he lived. Some estimates place him as early as 1800 BCE, others as late as 600 BCE. The sacred texts attributed to him, the Gathas, contain philosophical depth but offer no biographical detail. With no definitive archaeological evidence or contemporary records, Zoroaster's historical existence remains a subject of debate. These figures, Laozi, Homer, Zoroaster, each left a profound legacy. But they raise the same question. Were they individuals who lived and taught, or symbolic vessels for centuries of evolving thought? As the historical record fades, what remains is influence. Undeniable, enduring, but possibly born not of a single mind, but many. In the realm of faith, some figures are revered not for what they built or conquered, but for what they represented: piety, sacrifice, divine intervention. Yet many such names enshrined in devotion remain historically unverified. Number 10. Saint Christopher, one of the most venerated saints in Christianity, is often depicted as a giant man carrying the infant Christ across a river. His story, told across centuries, speaks of strength, conversion, and divine purpose. But historical evidence for Christopher's existence is virtually non-existent. Early martyrologies vary widely on his origin, with some claiming he lived during the reign of Emperor Decius in the 3rd century, while others place him much earlier or later. The earliest stories about him appear several hundred years after his supposed martyrdom and are rich in symbolism, but poor in verifiable details. In 1969, the Vatican officially removed Saint Christopher from the Universal Liturgical Calendar, citing the lack of historical evidence, though he remains a beloved figure in popular devotion. Number 11. Another iconic but shadowy figure is Saint George, best known for the tale in which he slays a dragon to rescue a princess, a symbol of triumph of good over evil. Historically, George is believed to have been a Roman soldier martyred under Emperor Diocletian in the early 4th century. However, no contemporary Roman records mention him. The dragon episode, central to his legend today, did not appear until centuries later, popularized during the Crusades, and solidified in Jacobus Dvoragin's Golden Legend in the 13th century. George became a patron saint of England, yet the historicity of his life, that beyond vague mentions and hagiographies, remains unconfirmed. Number 12. In Chinese folklore, another heroic figure emerges. Mulan, the courageous woman who disguised herself as a man to take her father's place in the army. Her story appears in the Ballad of Mulan, yet no historical documents from her era confirm her existence. Some scholars believe she is a composite of several women warriors, while others argue she is entirely legendary. Despite this uncertainty, Mulan remains a symbol of bravery, sacrifice, and female empowerment across cultures. Number 13. Queen Semiramis is one such figure. Associated with the Neo-Assyrian Empire, she has long been credited in legend with creating Babylon's Hanging Gardens, conquering vast territories, and ruling with unmatched power and beauty. Her story was famously expanded by Greek historians like Diodorus Siculus in the 1st century BCE, who portrayed her as a warrior queen born of a goddess and a mortal man. But historical evidence suggests that Semiramis was likely inspired by a real Assyrian queen, Shamuramat, who served as regent around 810 BCE for her young son, Adad-nirari. The third Shamuramat did wield unusual political power for a woman of her time, but the monumental achievements attributed to Semiramis, from building cities to leading vast campaigns, are not supported by contemporary Assyrian records. The transformation from Shamuramat to Semiramis reveals how legend can magnify a life beyond recognition. Number 14. In ancient China, the story of Emperor Yu the Great plays a similar role in foundational mythology. Said to have lived over 4,000 years ago, Yu is credited with taming the Great Flood and establishing the semi-mythical Xia dynasty, considered the first dynasty in Chinese history. According to ancient texts like the Shujing, Book of Documents, Yu labored tirelessly for years to dredge rivers and dig canals, showing unparalleled self-sacrifice and engineering skill. He became a moral exemplar in Confucian thought, symbolizing righteous rule and devotion to the people. Yet, despite his significance in Chinese tradition, modern archaeology has not conclusively verified his existence or the Xia dynasty itself. The earliest accounts of Yu were written centuries after his time, and no inscriptions or artifacts have directly confirmed his deeds. While some archaeologists have linked early Bronze Age sites like Erlitou to the Xia, the evidence remains inconclusive. These rulers, Semiramis and Yu, occupy a space between memory and myth. They became larger than life not through what they demonstrably achieved, but through what successive generations needed them to represent: power, virtue, and divine authority. Their stories remind us that even in royal chronicles, fact often yields to legend, especially when the past serves the needs of the present. Every nation at some point in its history seeks to define its origins through stories of resistance, of individuals who rose against oppression and lit the fire of independence. But in many cases, these revolutionary icons emerge not from verifiable history, but from national memory and myth. Number 15. In Chinese folklore, Guan Yu is revered as a paragon of loyalty and martial virtue. He was a general during the late Eastern Han Dynasty, serving under the warlord Liu Bei in the 2nd and 3rd centuries CE. While most historians accept that Guan Yu was a real historical figure, much of what is popularly known about him comes from the 14th century novel Romance of the Three Kingdoms, which dramatizes his life and inflates his role to near mythical proportions. Over time, Guan Yu became deified, worshipped as a god of war, and integrity shrines were built in his honor across East Asia. But the divine image, capable of slaying enemies with a single blow and returning from the dead, is far removed from the historical record. The real Guan Yu may have been a capable general, but his legendary status was crafted centuries after his death, reflecting cultural ideals more than historical accuracy. Number 16. In the world of early medieval literature, Beowulf occupies a unique position. The eponymous hero of the Old English epic is said to have fought monsters and dragons, ruled as a wise king, and died in noble sacrifice. The poem itself, written sometime between the 8th and 11th centuries, is considered a masterpiece of Anglo-Saxon literature. While the setting includes real geographic locations and references to historical peoples like the Geats and Danes, there is no concrete evidence that Beowulf himself ever existed. Attempts to connect him with known historical kings have proven speculative at best. Scholars generally regard him as a fictional hero set within a semi-historical world, embodying the values of courage, honor, and self-sacrifice that resonated with early medieval audiences. These stories, Guan Yu's loyalty, Beowulf's valor, serve a function beyond biography. They help societies understand their ideals through narrative. Whether it's rebellion against corruption or defense against chaos, these legendary figures reflect what people admire, what they fear, and what they aspire to become. Even when grounded in partial truth, their most memorable traits often come not from historical documentation, but from centuries of storytelling shaped by cultural need. Number 17. The Queen of Sheba appears in the Bible, the Quran, and Ethiopian tradition as a powerful monarch who visited King Solomon. Her kingdom is variously placed in Ethiopia, Yemen, or Arabia, but archaeologists have never found evidence directly linking her to any historical ruler. Her story may represent a blend of several queens or a symbolic figure invented to illustrate wisdom, diplomacy, and divine favor. Number 18. Romulus, founder of Rome. According to Roman legend, Romulus and his twin brother Remus were raised by a she-wolf before Romulus founded Rome in 753 BCE. Ancient historians themselves debated whether Romulus was real or a mythical ancestor created to give Rome a heroic origin story. No archaeological evidence confirms his existence, and many scholars view him as a symbolic personification of Rome's birth, rather than a historical king. Number 19. Gilgamesh. The ancient epic hero, Gilgamesh, king of Uruk, appears in one of the oldest surviving works of literature, the Epic of Gilgamesh. While some inscriptions mention a king named Gilgamesh around 2700 BCE, the legendary version, slayer of monsters, seeker of immortality, is almost certainly mythical. His story blends possible history with mythological adventures, making his true identity an unsolved mystery. Number 20. Sun Wukong, the Monkey King. A central figure in Chinese literature, Sun Wukong appears in the 16th century novel, Journey to the West. Though purely mythical in his magical form, some historians believe the character was inspired by earlier legends, travelers, or even real monks whose stories evolved over centuries today. Sun Wukong symbolizes rebellion, wit, and spiritual transformation. Number 21. Prince Shotoku, Japan. Prince Shotoku is credited with bringing Buddhism to Japan and establishing early government reforms in the 7th century. However, some modern historians argue that many of the achievements attributed to him were exaggerated or entirely fabricated by later writers to strengthen political legitimacy. Whether he was a single historical figure or a constructed symbol remains debated. In the end, the pursuit of truth in history is not just about proving what happened. It is about understanding why people believed it did. And in that pursuit, myth and memory are not obstacles, they are the starting point.